Should we get started, or is this
I
everyone will have today?
think we can.
I think we can. Yeah, that.
Awesome. I'm going to share my screen. We can get into it. If anyone has questions at any point, feel free to either chuck them in the chat or just respond right away. We're starting right here on the dashboard. What we're looking at is the Hemlane portal. So you'll notice here in the top right, this is my company, McKenna Holdings LLC. And so the dashboard is a provided overview of what's happening at your property. So you can see where leases are at in their terms, prospective tenants that are applying, ongoing maintenance requests, any messages you may have from tenants, and then a quick overview of the financials. So we were talking about kind of where the money's at and those issues. If it's in transit, it'll show as yellow, meaning it's in the process of being sent or paid or late. So you can keep nice track of where tenants are at in that payment history and create that action as needed. Now, with Hemlane, we use ACH bank transfer as the rent collection method of choice. So you would onboard with your bank account and the tenant with theirs, and it's direct from them to you. So we're not holding any of those funds. That transaction happens between the tenant and yourself, and we facilitate it and display it for ease of accounting and understanding of where that money's at. In terms of adding properties to the platform, it's quite simple and choosing your package. So we would add the property, picking the address, adding whatever team members are necessary, service professionals, and package type. Now, it's good to note that not every property has to be on the same package with Hemlane. We have 3 different packages here: basic, essential, and complete, much like we were talking about those human services. On our complete package, it's our network of service professionals. We do tenant communications, the coordination, and on that essential, it's your network of service professionals, our coordination team. And so based on what's needed at that property in terms of day-to-day support is what you can select for each property individually. When it comes to the marketing, if you have any tenant turnover, Hemlane makes that really simple. So marketing, we're going to create the terms. This is super important because when a tenant applies, it's going to direct them back into Hemlane and pre-qualify them based on what you suggested here. So do they have pets? What is the minimum credit score you're looking for out of a prospective tenant and their monthly income? That will weed out anyone that doesn't initially qualify. And then from there, we have additional qualification steps. So cast a nice wide net with Zillow, Trulia, HotPads, 30+ rental sites. So there's more eyes on your property, hoping for those better prospective tenants that we can qualify down into renters. And then as well, hopefully mitigate some of those eviction issues and delinquent tenant issues by just having more of a pool of prospective tenants to kind of draw on. Is there any questions initially about marketing, how you guys have, planned on leasing, doing that in the past?
Well, to be honest, I can speak from for the guys over here, maybe for Daniel also. Maybe it's a good idea to get the highlights of what features even Hemlane suggests, providing as a self-hybrid property management company, such as the marketing, because that's not trivial, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like get the highlights, get the things like, and then drill down maybe the how is it shown,
Yeah. So the leasing options are multiple. So we can connect with leasing agents, integrate them into your account, and have them manage the marketing in that sense. We also do tenant placement, but for the most part, we're trying to consolidate your marketing into one central place for both the factor of pushing it out to more rental sites and as well as just making it easier. So anyone that applies across those sites, like I mentioned, they come back into this prospective tenants tab. So everything is kept central, all information, and as well, you get access to all of those 30 listing sites by just completing the one listing in Hemlane. So again, speaking on time and money in that sense, it's about saving that time and streamlining processes, because in this self-management space, when you're talking about 5, 10, 15, up to 100 units that you're managing, time and efficiency becomes extremely important. So that's the hope with our marketing. And then as needed, if you can't coordinate showings or you want that in-person touch on the showings leasing, we can provide those options and integrate them into the account. That kind of brings me to your team in general, such with you guys as an investor group. If you're all in on one property, let's say, we could have you guys as all with your own accounts as users, admin accounts, such that you can oversee the whole process that happens within Hemlane for the investment properties that you either go in together or separate. So super simple on that regard is adding them by name and email and then providing them specific permissions. It's also how we would add your leasing agent if you did go down that route, is connecting the leasing agent to your Hemlane account such that you can keep track and visible of what's going on that leasing side. Kind of another differentiating factor here at Hemlane, opposed to your traditional property management, is that visibility and control. I like to say we'll be the horses, you hold the reins, in terms of you'll be the decision making, but we can help provide that visibility into the decisions that we're doing and the work we're doing on our end. From that side, all the tenant information and data is stored nicely in this tenants and leases section. So when it comes to messaging tenants, that can be done here. Any documents regarding them, ID, W-2, their lease agreement, move-in inspection, the application they did, and the screening, obviously. So storing that data, again, centralizing everything at a moment's glance for yourself, owners, leasing agents, the investment group in general, to have visibility into these things.
So Nathan, could I stop you just one moment? Can we go back to the marketing? I think there's a point that needs to be elaborated on. It might be the showing on the listing, because marketing, this is great. This is awesome, right? This is consolidated, and you can like publish an ad, as a matter of fact, all over the web. And then there's like applicants, and they get this form that they fill it up. We have like all kind of suggestions, who do we want, blah, blah, blah. They want to see the house and walk it. So you said something about the showing to be showed by personnel, right? Something that you can integrate. Can you elaborate on the showing side? Because all of this is taking place, behind the keyboard. Let's say there's a tenant that wants to see the house. He's kind of approved or something. Like, let's say he passes our initial form. Yeah, exactly. And he wants to see the house. What's next? How's that?
It depends, right? Like we talked with the self-service model, the showing options depend on your situation. So let's say you're a remote owner that wants to show their property. You live in Florida and the property is in Columbus, Ohio. What we would do is add a showing agent to this. So this is my showing agent, McKenna Holdings. It's actually me, but that's where we would add that showing agent in as a team member, or if it was yourself, you would add that in, and you can add showing times either as an open house format. So say Saturday at 2 p.m., I've invited these 10 tenants to come to the property because I'm doing it self-service, doing the showing myself, and I don't want to make that drive or be at the property all the time.
Well, let's say I don't have a showing, I don't have a listing agent, because probably if I have a listing agent, he would go the traditional route and maybe publish it on his site and blah blah, etc. So what happens if I don't know anyone in this market? Could you assist finding a showing agent or whatever it's called? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
How's that?
Yeah, so we have local leasing agent connections across the nation. So we could, if you didn't have a leasing agent, we could connect you with one, again, integrating them into your Hemlane account, and they would work via here as well as in person. We also have specific leasing options that we provide. We do, it's called tenant placement. Essentially, you would post the listing, much like we talked about, And then our team would handle the finding, qualifying, and arranging of self-guided tours. So we did digital lockbox tours. So we would send out a lockbox to the property, have it put on. Our team would coordinate with the prospective tenants to show them the property as a self-guided tour. So at that time, before the tour, we get biometrics from prospective tenants for a security measure. That way we know they are who they say they are. And once, let's say their time is 12:30, so they showed up to the property at 12:15, Hemlane provide the code to the lockbox. They would get the key, walk through the property themselves, put the key back in the lockbox. And at that time, we remotely change the code to that lockbox such that the code is rendered useless after that showing, and the next prospective tenant has a new code. So it's a more cost-effective remote way of doing it that we've had a lot of success with. And for some people, they're not as comfortable and or as they like the human touch. They want to be more personal. So either they'll coordinate the showings or we can connect them with that leasing agent.
Well, that's very interesting. Let me just clarify a couple of things. I mean, I don't know if Daniel has elaborated on that. We're like a group of investors in Israel, so obviously we're going to be remotely investing in the United States. Most of us, of course. And Daniel is observing and trying to see if that works for us, and that's like different conditions from like locals that have investment properties than and the human touch and stuff like that. We just don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
So Hemlane would be an option. What you're saying is, if I don't know anyone in the neighborhood, no one in this market, I don't have even a listing agent, I can theoretically buy a house, list it through Hemlane, right? And get all the applicants through Hemlane, through, I mean, the affiliated portals that you guys have with, right? Zillow and Trulia and Redfin, stuff like that. And then show it through Hemlane's coordinators using a digital lockbox or a biometric lockbox. And there you go. We don't have to be in the property. We don't have to be on site. And we'll list it, right? That's what
exactly. And it even goes a step further with the leasing, is that it's not just the tenant placement. We can do kind of the whole turnover. So the inspection of the property initially, when let's say you do close on a property, get an inspection, make sure everything is correct, furnace is working correctly, ovens, appliances, the unit is rent ready. So inspection, rent ready, so coordinating those minor repairs, replacement, deep cleaning, and then the tenant placement. So we could do the whole turnover from you buy the property, okay, do the inspection, make sure it's rent ready, and then find me a tenant. The only input that's needed on your end is to fill out this marketing like we discussed. The listing info, features.
And this is a fixed price, right? You showed there like for $595, it's the whole package of like the full turnover. That's what you're saying?
So $995.
$995.
So, but it's less expensive if my house is rented out for $1,600.
Exactly.
It's not a 1 month rent in any case for a listing agent.
The only way this gets jammed up is furnished rentals. We can't do the tenant placement service and the guided lockbox tour with furnished rentals due to liability reasons.
Yeah, I get it.
It's the only matter of
all right. Interesting. Yeah, I can go.
Go
Well, I have a question. All these self-guided tours, how do you make sure that people would not vandalize or just stay there, or because it happens?
Yeah, certainly. And that comes down to two things: the security measures we have in place and the qualifications that we take before we do the showing. So in that regard, we get biometrics. So it's a photo, a selfie essentially of the person with their government ID in that photo. We would compare. Exactly. We would compare their application, their Zillow application with those biometrics to ascertain whether or not that person is acting out of line. At that point, we would go ahead with the self-guided tour. So it's really the qualification steps beforehand as a preventative measure to make sure that doesn't happen. And we've had really great success with that. And especially because our leasing team, you know, they do this day in and day out, they also can kind of sniff out the bad apples per se that aren't replying in a way that a realistic tenant would reply and show interest. And so it's really a preventative measure for the most part with the qualification steps.
So, you know, Nathan, you know what's missing, right? What's missing? That's like everything in getting a tenant in my house. But what's missing?
The lease agreement.
Exactly. Handle that, and that's 100% completion.
Exactly. So that's the best thing. You're on our complete package or essential. You get a Rocket Lawyer account. So
I got the Rocket Lawyer account. Yeah, I got it.
Leases and e-signature. So even if you're remote, okay, so now Hemlane's done the tenant placement. We say, okay, I've got Nathan Teves. We think he'd be a great tenant. Can you confirm that? We send that back to you guys. Because again, you're the decision makers. We're not allowed to make decisions on your behalf, or we don't want to. You say, absolutely, let's move them in. At that point, you'd go to Rocket Lawyer, draft that state-specific lease with your personal amendments, send it off to that prospective tenant. They sign it and send it back to you. And the key is already at the property because of that lockbox. So again, someone doesn't have to be there. You send them in with a move-in inspection. They upload to the platform. And now you have a new tenant who's moved in with a lease agreement, paying rent.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. So the leasing options are great. And it's obviously dependent on what works best for you. Obviously, in your case, being remote in that sense, the tenant placement service and our leasing services in general are awesome for that. So any further questions on the leasing side, or should I move on to?
You can move on. I think we will go back to the pricing at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a short question about the leasing and the tenant placement. We give you or you suggest what are the terms for the tenants in a specific place?
Yeah,
Let's say a specific credit score, specific no evacuations or.
Yeah, exactly. So when you request this leasing service, our leasing team is going to reach out initially. That's the first step of understanding how best to move forward, what type of renter you're looking for, what you should rent out the property. So they would be doing rental comps for you, saying, hey, the rent in this area is about this much. What does that look like for you and your account and your business? Are you looking for this type of renter in let's say it was in the Phoenix area and it was a more expensive unit, you might bump up those qualifications.
Yeah.
We have minimum, not requirements, but recommendations, and that can be changed based on the conversations with leasing and your own personal input.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. So at that point, like I mentioned, they come into this tenant leases, data is stored there, and obviously we're updating you based on when their lease agreement is going to end. So you're prepared for that next tenant turnover or the re-sign at that time. So you can request the tenant placement early, make the listing, organize showings, get the move out report. Now, when it comes to financials, again, super simple with Hemlane. There's an onboarding process for the tenants as well, which they would have initially done when they apply. Because when they apply, it brings them back into the portal. So they would have already made an account and been familiar with how to use Hemlane. At that point, they onboard their banking account. You would do the same. And then during the onboarding process with me, I would support in making this rent request. So it's a property at 736 Cambridge, coming from my tenant to me into my deposit account. I'm going to make that a rent request for $8,000, and we're going to make it recurring so that we don't have to do it every month. So now every month, yeah, it's an expensive unit. Monthly on the first, every month until they either move out or their lease expires, they're being requested $8,000. You can allow payment via debit or credit if the tenants aren't comfortable paying ACH. And you can allow partial payments. Now, I really do not recommend partial payments. It makes accounting a nightmare. The eviction kind of proceedings causes complications on that end. Obviously, that decision's up to you, but that's my personal recommendation, as well as the automatic late fees. So now the tenant would come into their side of the portal.
Sorry, I didn't say that. You had a late fee?
Yeah. So the late fees are automatic. So there's a one-time late fee of $250 on the 5th of the month if they haven't paid. So the tenant would then come into their side of the portal and hit accept, and they can also set up auto pay. So then the first of every month, if they set up auto pay, there's an $8,000 ACH transaction that happens between their account to yours with no fees on our end at all, and the money is direct from them to you.
Nice.
Yeah. So simple on that end. And then obviously that reports to your financial reporting. So any expenses, whether that's on the maintenance and repair side, leasing, rent on the inn, is cash flow.
Oh,
income.
wait, before the report. That's when everything goes in the right direction. What happens if the tenant is not paying?
Yeah. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 days, 10 days.
Yeah. So then
What the
there
fuck?
be charged that late payment. We also have a service. It's an add-on service called Eviction Guard. So it's $4.95 a month. Probably would be best for your guys' circumstance. If the tenants are late on rent by 3 days, then our team is reaching out with a mediation step initially. So they're late on rent. Why is that? Our team is going to reach out. 90% of cases end in mediation with us. So we usually find a way for them to pay. Also, the pressure from a larger business and a different kind of avenue often causes them to get smart to it, I'll say. If they don't comply with that mediation, if they can't work that out, then we'll move on to serving pay or quit notices. Obviously, with your guidance and kind of say so to say, yes, proceed in that fashion. So we'll serve in-person notices to them, eviction, pay or quit. And then from there, we'll pass off to legal counsel to say, hey, this needs to be escalated to a full-blown legal proceeding in which their fees are separate, but they could represent you on your behalf, obviously, as you're not stateside, could represent you in those eviction proceedings if it did get there. But again, all the steps taken beforehand are hoping to prevent that. And if it does get there, you have a full-blown paper trail of the necessary things needed to bolster your case in the case of an eviction proceeding, like not allowing partial payments, doing mediation initially, serving pay or quit notices in compliance with that state's local guidelines, and then saying, okay, here's the full package of paper trail that you need to have when this eviction proceeding takes place. So there's that support on that end, Daniel, for the kind of delinquent late payments and eviction support as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah. And we haven't really touched maintenance and repair yet, which is one of our kind of main differentiating factors. So again, all about transparency. So like I mentioned with the dashboard, you'll be notified of these requests, and we obviously want to stay within your budget when it comes to maintenance requests. So in this case, there was an electrical issue at the property. It was a ceiling fan that wasn't working. The first step we do is troubleshooting. 2 reasons. We want to get the most amount of information we can, and we also want to prevent unnecessary service tickets. So 10% of service tickets end in the troubleshooting. So it was a light fixture that wasn't working. It's in the bedroom. And again, not everyone's house trained, as I'm sure you guys know. Flipping a breaker can be Mission Impossible starring Tom Cruise. So that is step number 1, is to see if we can fix the problem. If we can't, then we'll get more information via a title and a description. And then additionally, photos and videos can be uploaded by the tenant of that issue. From there, our coordination team is reaching out to them, and you have full transparency into this conversation back and forth between the tenants and our team. So our team's going to reach out to them and say, hey, thanks for the note. We're working with so-and-so contractor. Are you available Tuesday at 3:30 for that to happen? Tenant says, actually, I'm not. Can we do Tuesday at 5:30? Our team coordinates with them and says yes. At this point, you would be shown the estimate of what that service ticket is going to cost based on the information we have available and the service provider's response. And from there, we're going to comply with your threshold amounts that are set. So if it's a standard threshold of $450 and it's under that cost, the estimate we get from our service professional, then we're just going to go ahead and coordinate that fix. Once it gets over that, then we need your approval to make sure that we're existing within your budget and your spending limits. So that's how we retain the control in your hands, provide the visibility into what's happening at your property, and provide good service to tenants based on our network of service professionals that we've vetted and included over time to make sure that the job is done right for all parties involved.
Nathan, I can't emphasize how much this is efficient on my end when I'm using it. We're all already using the maintenance and the coordination. This is like an awesome features that your guys can do and in a very efficient way. I mean, I'm saving hundreds of dollars per month using those exact troubleshooting. By the way, the troubleshooting helped like 200% of the time, almost, right? Like 99% of the time, the troubleshooting thing, it's awesome that you have templates. I've learned myself on how to troubleshoot all kinds of stuff that I've read in Hemlane's representative that like show the tenant, you know what, if the AC unit is not working, did you try that? Did you try this? Did you try the breaker or whatever, the filters? I've learned myself of how to troubleshoot like AC units through Hemlane's checklist of troubleshooting.
The other thing with the troubleshooting is based on the type of ticket that they create. We'll recommend our emergency line. Let's say it's a plumbing issue and their response in the troubleshooting is the main line is flooding. We're instantly going to say, hey, stop the troubleshooting and phone our emergency line at this number, because we don't want another second to go by where damage is happening at your property. So it also weeds out the importance of that ticket and how fast we should respond based on their responses. So I totally agree with you there. And again, with just how we provide instructions to our team, that way we know, again, we talked about adding service professionals in. This is where you would do that. So we have our third-party network. As you can see, I have Jessica Parker as my HVAC systems service professional. She is ahead of our third-party network. So if you have any good people or connections in that area that you want us to do maintenance with, then we'll go to them first. And if we can't hear from them, we don't hear from them, can't get in contact, we'll move on to our five-star network. As well, providing more information for both the tenants and ourselves to coordinate effectively water shutoff, breaker box, what are tenant responsibilities. Again, we want to make sure that we're not spending unnecessarily, sending people out to replace HVAC filters when it's actually a tenant responsibility as outlined in the lease. So it's really just doing well by the owner and the tenant and providing visibility so that everyone knows what's going on. Any additional questions, follow up about the maintenance and repair, SLAs, how we do it, or is that a decent overview for y'all?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When some professional guy you've sent to an issue has a strategy or maybe a price that, in my opinion, is too high, can you ask for another one?
Absolutely. Second quote, free, no additional charge. So that's why we provide that visibility and why you can come in and see these updates, because if you say, hey, I got a plumbing fix in Columbus, Ohio last year for the same thing, and it was $75 cheaper, you can tell our team, hey, can you get a second quote? I've actually had this done a little bit cheaper. And so, yes, you can ask for extra quotes, step in on the ticket at any time as you see fit.
Great.
Yeah. The other thing to note, which is very important, is that there's no markups on our end for this. So whatever the service professional quotes us is what we quote you. So there's no, oh, the plumber was 100 and we charge 110 as a service fee. So additional note there on that. Any other questions on this? You get the exact coordinator who's working on it, see these work orders again in the dashboard as needed. And those thresholds amounts that I was talking about previously can be changed at any time. So if I have clients of mine who do, they do hiking retreats for a month at a time where they're legitimately off the map. You cannot get a hold of them. They're like, you will, unless you have a satellite phone, you're not reaching us. So they change their thresholds to a higher amount while they're gone for that month to ensure that if something did happen and it was more than their traditional threshold amount, that, you know, it's not going to not get taken care of, so we can't reach them. So different ways you can customize your account, those properties specific to, you know, operate in the way that you best see fit with your accounting, business, the property, and the tenants in general.
I have another question. It's,
yeah, no
and
worries.
you all give, like, for us as the owner, service that we can speak to you and ask questions or problems or...
Yeah, so there's a couple different avenues for general support. Myself, I'm kind of the main connection with all of my clients between Hemlane and them. So if they have issues in their account or billing or aren't understanding, then they can call me at my direct line. We also have 24/7 in-house support as well. So there's lines you can call for support, and it's really important to us and especially our customers, and it reflects in our reviews. I would say 70% of our reviews, they talk about our products and services, yes, but they also mention the support that Hemlane offers as just best in class. When it comes to responding to emails, calls, you're going to connect with a human employee that works at Hemlane always. And that really means a lot to people on that end, whether it's tenant support, owner support, maintenance when it comes to that, because owners can still put in maintenance requests as well. So, hey, can you, you know, it's that time of year that I need to coordinate my yearly furnace checkup. They would phone Hemlane and say, hey, can you do that? And then we're on it. So that's really the note about support with us is myself and then our 24/7 support in-house.
About quarterly checks, do you have, like, can you do like recurrent check, like before winter or before all kind of this?
Yeah, in terms of coordinating on the property. It's not something we would traditionally do unless you had a connection in that area that we could request. So can coordinate that out, but we don't have a service per se that gets people out to the property, whether it's monthly or quarterly or bi-yearly, unless you had a contact in that area that we could connect with and get that out. Again, we can do that inspection service that we talked about earlier with leasing at any time. It's a $300 service, and it's a more holistic inspection of the property. What I've recommended in the past is that remote owners that want inspections would have in their lease agreement that the tenant must provide quarterly inspection reports to the owner with photos. So that's how I've done that in the past with remote owners, is kind of putting that responsibility on the tenant to showcase, hey, this is the property as of January 10th. I filled out the kind of move-in inspection report and provided photos to showcase that that is the truth. So different solutions there, but...
but if I have someone, you can also send them, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. We could
because let's say before winter, I want to see that nothing is clogged and with the leaf that fell, for example, and the rain will not be stuck on the roof or whatever, things like that. Or the furnace filter or whatever.
Exactly. So let's say it was that recurring services, like you mentioned, you would come in and request our coordination team to make that happen. So it's pre-winter. You could say recurring services, what's the request? Please.
Okay, I understand. Yeah.
Hey Nathan, what about tasks? Isn't that done by tasks? If you like add a maintenance or something, I'm just suggesting, I don't know.
Yeah, so here, let me exit this. So for the kind of recurring services, like whether it's snow removal, that would be a request the owner would make or the tenant would make. The task section is more of a onboarding support and owner support to make sure the account is fully fledged out. So when you first onboard, it's going to ask you, like if you go through tasks, it'll basically walk you through the platform to make sure everything is set up correctly. So I have a vacancy at 620 Northeast. Do I want to advertise it or add a tenant in? So that's what the task section is for. In regards to the recurring services, that would be a manual request made to the coordination team.
Hey, Nathan, can I ask a question, please?
Absolutely.
Maybe I lost it because I had like frictions in the internet. If I have the connections for the professionalized people in the area that you connect with, how the payments goes from me to them, the same like from the tenant to me? It's through the platform?
Yeah, it depends what package you're on, and we'll talk about pricing and packages in a second. On our essential package, we provide the coordination, you provide the service professionals, that invoicing would happen outside of the Hemlane portal. On our complete package, when it's our network and you can add your own additional, we basically pay for the service up front and then bill you from us, and so that accounting and billing happens on the platform. So then again, you would add those service pros here, and then in instructions of each specific property, you would add those dispatch preferences of your network and then our network second, and the billing happens on platform in that regard. So to discuss pricing and kind of take a look at the different units. So this is the three different packages when it comes to Hemlane: basic, essential, and complete. I'm just noticing my computer is on 4%. I will be right back. I do not want to lose you guys.
I'll leave you.
You don't have Wi-Fi and electric?
ואחרי זה להוריד בעריכה.
אין הפקת חשמל.
בוא ננצל את זה להיילייט על כל מה שהוא דיבר, כי אני פספסתי את ההתחלה, אבל נשמע מדהים.
מדהים, כן.
זה מוקלט, תראה אותו אחר כך מההתחלה.
מה זה מדהים? זה די...
חובה.
זה הרבה יותר שקוף, וזה מה שלי חסר עם החברת ניהול שלי, לצורך העניין.
אבל כשהוא אומר לשווק, זה ממש הוא מפרסם את זה בזילו ובריאלטור, ממש שירו את זה, והם עונים לדיירים כל פעם, הם עושים להם את ה...
כן, הם משבשים להם את המוח, ומגיעים אליך פרוספקטיב, הטנדנס ההגיוני, אתה קבעת שם נורמלי, ועכשיו לא ידעתי את זה.
זה 20 פלטפורמות.
וכל זה $995, מה שהוא אמר.
לא, אמרתי שלא עולה את זה, אבל מה שלא...
לא, הוא דיבר על כל החבילה, 995 זה כולל...
האכלוס, רק האכלוס.
האכלוס, הבדיקה, האינספקשן, הכל, כן, זהו חזר.
בדיוק.
You give the Israelis 5 minutes, they get crazy. Control the meeting.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Thanks for letting me grab that. Didn't want to lose you. Any questions on the pricing while we're here? The difference in services, I'm happy to go over.
It takes time to go over it,
Yeah, sorry. And then the one thing to note with the cost here is that there's that initial base fee of $34, and then every unit added on after that is $95 or $15 respectively. So you'll notice if we have 2 units, it's not $100 on the essential, it's that $64. So just that to be sure of that on the pricing.
Okay, but before we saw this number, 995.
That was the leasing.
It's monthly, I think. Yes, there is the yearly payment, right?
So there's
maybe you can go through the differences between the packages, because
absolutely.
just to go through what you just described in the regard this every package, to say this goes here, that we don't have here in this package, and etc. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing about the 995, that was the leasing for the turnover. So the inspection, the rent ready, and then the leasing service. That's the a la carte service, the one-time fee. When it comes to the packages and their differences, so the basic is the software. So rent collection, marketing, anything else we talked about besides the maintenance and repair coordination. When you get into the essential and complete, that's where we're talking about the human services. So that human capital is why it comes at a higher cost. You get the Rocket Lawyer account that we talked about earlier on, the state-specific leases and e-signature, and then our repair coordination team. So this is where you would enter in your full network of service professionals, so HVAC, electrician, plumbers, and our team will respond to tenant inquiries and coordinate with your professionals. Again, that invoicing between you and the service professional would happen outside of the platform. The complete is our most full service package, where it's our repair coordination team, but it's also our network of service professionals. So because we're 24,000 units nationwide, we've built out over time relationships and kind of an understanding of who does good service in what areas. So we have very stringent qualifications on the service professionals we choose. They need to be above 4.7 out of 5 stars in our internal ranking system, or else we don't use them. So similar to Uber, every time you take a ride, you're reviewed and ranked. We do the same thing with our service professionals, and the cream rises to the top and stays at the top, obviously, if it is the cream. Also, you get access to local leasing agent. And then something we added more recently is the tenant communications. So if there's HOA violations, any noise complaints, concerns with tenants about lease agreements, our team handles that communication back and forth. And that's a 3-hour SLA on that. So those are the main differences between basic, essential, complete. How much more of the process you want us to coordinate and handle, and what type of networks you want access to on our end.
I have a question. Is it possible that, let's say, in one location I need only the essential, and on another place I want the complete? Just depends on personnel, the houses.
Exactly, absolutely. So
okay.
Distinct properties can be on distinct packages as needed.
Okay.
Yeah. Any further questions about the differences, what that looked like in the platform or in that regard?
No, I have another question.
Yeah.
Do you have a phone application?
Could you say that one more time? Sorry, Danny.
Do you have an application? This is a website, right?
Yeah, like a rental application?
Like a mobile application.
Mobile application.
The app on a mobile.
Oh, I see an app. Okay. Currently, we don't have an app. That's something that we're working on building out this year, although the platform is mobile friendly. So if you log in on your phone on Safari or whatever your website is, it won't break down and look all messed up. It'll look exactly like we looked at today. So currently, no application.
Okay.
If we talked about so far, so maybe could you tell us a little bit about the roadmap of Hemlane's this year? I mean, development and stuff, because I have a lot of requests. You can write it down. But...
Yeah, no, definitely looking for feedback. And let me open my notes right now, because I always get harped to say, ask for feedback. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to tell them how we're so great. So one of the main things we got for feedback was accounting. So that's changing Q1. we're integrating bank syncing. So previous transactions and any accounting that takes place outside of Hemlane will now be synced and tracked directly into our accounting. Additionally, the mobile app is on track for this year.
Oh, thank God for that. All right. God bless you.
Yeah. So those are the kind of initially what we're looking at is syncing banking and accounting, just for simplifying that, again, making it easier for owners, tax season, managing, you know, the cash flow operations of their business, and then providing the mobile app for just tenants. Everyone uses apps, and most people have iPhones, so that's kind of the roadmap for this year in that regards. But we're always making positive changes.
So can I feedback something on the text notification?
Yeah.
When you're sending text notification, let's say a tenant messaged me on Hemlane, so I get an SMS on my phone that's saying something like, tenant at 1612 Street has messaged you through Hemlane, and then the message itself, it's not in the SMS. I need to get into my computer, get into Hemlane, and then find out what he wants. But you can do that because you sent me an SMS saying, "Hey, the tenant messaged you something. Here's the message." What do you think about that? Is that?
I like how that sounds. I think that makes sense intuitively. I'll
it
definitely,
does, right?
Yeah, it does make sense. It might be, there might be a reason on the sort of back end or some sort of integration KPIs and how that operates with different text carriers.
No, it's even starting. I mean, it's quote unquote starting with the message, whatever it was, but it's not ending. Like it's like 3 dots, and then
it'll show you the preview of the message and not the whole thing.
Yeah, and then press here to see what he wants. Why wouldn't you just send me the message so I'll know what he wants, instead of like clicking on the URL that forwarded me? Anyway, this is my forward. This is one thing. The second thing, if you want me, if I'm allowed to, you said something about the Rocket Lawyer, and they're great. They got good services, and this is awesome. But some of your competitors are just implementing right now the lease signatures, the e-signatures built in their platforms. That's what everybody does right now. So like
DocuSign, something like
yeah,
this?
some kind of a DocuSign or some kind of an e-signature in any or of any form could be like that's like the 1% that's missing on all of your features of the leasing up to the showing, and you know, the everything like the turnovers. You got everything. You got it all. Like they don't have it all. You got it all. So like the lease thing is like the, you know, it's that's that. You know, you just get the state leases. I know that's a lot, but let's say you have 200 leases, I don't know, from different states. You put it in the portal, you select your state, and you got the lease, like a standard one, and you can recommend this is our standard lease. If you want something else, go fetch it yourself or something. But like as a built-in thing, that would be awesome. If that
I appreciate that feedback, and I'll definitely pass on. I have heard that before, is just integrating the lease agreements in platform. And there is some additional features on Rocket Lawyer that people like, because it isn't just access to the leases that you get. But I do hear that, and I will pass that along, that there is
instead of forwarding customers to an affiliate, you got it all. You just need to put the standard leases inside your portal, you know, 2 clicks, 1 click, and then like the tenant has a portal. By the way, if I think those guys will want to see the tenant's portal also. If you have a demo for it, that would be nice. So like what's the tenant sees when he logs into Hemlane, that's a different portal. If you could show us that also, That'd be great.
Yeah, so right now we are looking at the tenant portal. I just switched us over. So as you see on the left, looks very similar to yours, but they obviously don't have access to all that information. So again, same thing on the dashboard. It's going to show the late payments. I've requested a lot of payments from Jose, so he's in a bit of debt. But yeah, so again, showing these late payments to pay them, it's an easy click, make payment. Same with setting up the auto pay. It will give them the option to as well. Maintenance and repair tickets, hit request. It brings them through the similar process that we made. And then terms and documents that I've uploaded on my end or vice versa that the tenant has access to. So their ID, the lease agreement, inspection report, initial move-in inspection, and then obviously the messaging between the owner and the tenant. In this case, on our complete package, it would be us handling the messaging.
Yeah, so, by the way, that's another drawback on the tenant side, because when you guys publish the app, it would be like, you know, tens of 100% more responsive tenants using the messaging system, right? Because, yeah, you know, it's on their phones.
The app is something that is really important for us this year, and why we're pushing really hard, and that the roadmap sounds a bit barren in terms of accounting and then app, but I agree with you in terms of having that would be.
By the way, on the accounting side, and that's just my feedback, right? And maybe some of us in here right now in that Zoom meeting, let's say we're using QuickBooks or Stessa or whatever app we're using as an accounting platform. It's almost like Hemlane says, no, you're doing the wrong thing. We're doing the accounting for you. Go ahead and, you know, get all the documentation and the transaction documentation you're doing over there. Get into Hemlane and start, I don't know, from scratch, but let's say you can import like you know, the past year or whatever, right? It's not that simple, right? Because this is like a tax thing. You don't want to rock the ship before, like, you know, tax season, right? So, I mean, I'm not fully understanding the incentive of Hemlane doing that, because, like, if I'm comfortable with QuickBooks or Stessa or whatever other platform, it's going to be very hard for me. You know, it will need to have like extreme added value versus like what I use in order to get all my accounting into Hemlane just for the rent, and maybe not even the service provider payments, because that's been done outside Hemlane. So it's gonna be just for documenting rent, right? Like a rentful, like and that's that. Now my platform collects from my bank account portal the transaction of Hemlane, and they categorize it by per address or property or whatever, right?
Mm.
And that's that. I'm done. I don't necessarily need or must have all my accounting into Hemlane just because tenants paid rent through the portal. You see what I'm saying? See my point?
I do see what you're saying. I think the distinction is that for other owners who don't utilize a service, their accounting is all over the place. Like you'd be surprised how messed up people's accountants are, whether it's property managers or owners, and you think they have 6 property, they must run a tight ship, and their accounting all over the place because they're not using a QuickBooks or a Stessa, and that's why we want to integrate the banking account. So things like utilities, taxes, any leasing fees you paid, HOA fees that you pay, if it's a condo and there's condo fees, all of that tracks to a more simple accounting, and that use case is so beneficial for a large number of people that aren't as financially educated and aware of the accounting woes.
I understand. All right, I understand.
And it's not only financially educated. These are more applications they need to use, and also Stessa, when you configure all of them, you have to add all the information. And A lot of people don't want that. They want one centralized place, I guess.
Yeah, one-stop shop. That'll be great.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing with the lease agreements. Why use an affiliate accounting partner if you can have it all in one place and then export to Excel and send to an accountant inside?
But you could. It would be so easy for you.
Maybe it's a liability issue, the agreements.
We'll give you the API.
Yeah. So, and that's at least something that we've heard a lot of. Like I've heard a lot of is that accounting, just to make it easier for people that don't have those systems in place. I do talk to people where they say, I'm not using your accounting because I have 28 properties and I have an in-house accountant that runs everything. I run everything through them. So it's just kind of what is en masse needed in that regard. Anything else, you guys? I do have another meeting here in about 5 minutes. So if there's any last final questions or kind of next steps you guys are wanting to take in regards
I have one. If Daniel wants to ask something else, I would like to ask one more last question.
I would like to see some of the reports the system can provide.
Sure.
Yeah, give me 1 sec. Let me switch over. I just got to stop my share here for a second. Okay. Yeah, so currently with the way our accounting is, we have cash flow, income statement, and then the lease ledger. And these can be for all properties or specific properties. So if you wanted to look at the cash flow statement, rent, any financials, currently you would have to track, let's say you paid utilities payment outside of Hemlane. That was between you and the utilities company. You would have to track that as an extended form. So you'd pick the property, the unit, it's from who, or you're paying into who for, let's say, create a new invoice for utilities. You'd have to do this for each utilities transaction. If you have 100 units, that's where we talk about kind of integrating that accounting where I just pay the utilities bill and that tracks in. So for the reports, any one of these categories besides rent, maintenance and repair, and the Hemlane fees would have to be inputted outside of the platform. That's why we're changing it come Jan 1. But as for the reports we can provide per property or all properties, cash flow, income statement, and lease ledger. So the rent roll.
Great, nice.
Yeah, and then any one of can be downloaded Excel or PDF as well.
Can you say just a few words about the multifamily, about the stage of acquisition? Because usually we use the management company to map the area, to say something about the rents or about the building. So in this phase, usually we're not starting working with you, but we want your point of view or recommendations. So do you have that service, or?
That's most likely something that our leasing team would support with best. They'd be most knowledgeable in about that area, that kind of rental market in terms of what housing, what should rent be. In terms of before that service, not currently a service we provide. I could most likely connect you with our CEO, Dana. She'd love to talk to you guys, and you could talk your ear off about property management solutions and the rental markets and all that. But currently, no would be the short answer, just to keep it succinct.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Well, unfortunately, I do have to jump back to a meeting in 2 minutes. Please keep in contact with me. I'll definitely be speaking with Daniel, and I can provide my email, personal line, and some support documents as well regarding Hemlane. Happy to answer questions in the coming days, weeks, months regarding what we do in our solutions. But it was a pleasure talking with all of you today. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathan. It was a great pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day, and look forward to talking to hopefully a whole bunch of you guys in the near future.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.